Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire 2022 pre-race info athlete briefings. Make sure you hit up the briefings beforehand to make sure there isn't any last minute changes or you know exactly what's happening before you race. Swimming before. You can swim the days leading up to the race. You just have to be checked in order to do so. Look out for an email from active.com so you can reserve your check-in time. It might not happen, but what has happened this whole year is for a week or two before the race starts, you will be peppered with race emails, and you will be not able to miss them. Just make sure you check your spam periodically just in case you put their promotional emails in there. And with those emails, you'll be able to reserve some check-in times or things like that. Bring your ID when you do check in. You'll get things like your wristband, race bib, stickers, swim caps, all the fixings. Biggest thing you got to keep an eye out for is your timing chip at the start of the check-in process or wherever. If it is not at athlete check-in, it might be at the T1 area, but make sure you ask them about it here. At some races, we have had athletes had to wear their timing chip when they do check in their bike and bags. If this is the case here, you have to wear your chip when you do check in, otherwise they will force you to leave and go get it. Aid stations, a little bit different here, but they do have aid stations here. On the run, it's about every 1.5 miles. On the bike, there are 3 listed there, and you can see the offerings that they offer through here. They do also offer energy bars as well, so make sure you're utilizing what you do in training and trying to pair it as best as possible to what they will have on course for you. Race bags, you're going to be getting a bike bag, a run bag, and a streetwear bag. All is typical and all is similar to what is in America, so that shouldn't change a whole lot. Biggest difference is the morning or the streetwear bag will be dropped off before you swim, and you will have an additional walk up to the swim start. So if it's a colder race, you might want to put on that wetsuit, but just plan for your morning clothes to be dropped off a lot sooner than normal. Saturday, do you need to wear your timing chip? Ask. Okay? Excuse me, this is a breakdown of what is going on that Saturday, the 11th of June. We have swim practice from 10 to 11:45. Again, you must be registered athletes, and only they are allowed to do that. Transition 1 opens for bike and blue bag check-in, 8:30 to 1600 hours. Transition 2, again, it is a 2 transition course, so make sure you plan ahead for that. 8:30 to 1600 again for your transition 2 red bag check-in. Race day, get there early just in case. This is the breakdown of what happens on that Sunday. Athlete bus service picks up at 4:15 a.m. and transition opens at 5, closes at 7. And if you looked at the athlete guide there, 2 things happen at 7. The age group rolling swim starts at 7, and also you must have your morning clothes bag already dropped off at 7. So I know that the transition closes at 7, but I highly encourage you to get out of there before then so you can drop off your morning clothes bag. Transition 2 opens for bike and blue bag collection. That is at 14:30 to 1900. That's where you'll be able to collect your bags over there, so 2:30. Oh, and I've skipped the awards ceremony, which is at 6, and that's where slots will be allocated after that. Strongly recommend shuttle service on race morning. It's super busy. This is a typical example of what is there on race day. Ignore that. Cutoffs, 8:30 total cutoff time. The swim is a 1:10 swim cutoff time. 1:10, not 1:20, so keep that in mind. The swim here at this race is a technical one. Before we do that, you can see the transition area is located in this orange box down here, and there is a walkout. Again, this is where you will drop off your morning clothes, and then the swim start is over here, a rolling swim start, and it is self-seated, so make sure you organize yourself with like-minded individuals. This course is a very technical course. Very, very technical course. There's going to be lots of people everywhere. There is a turn at the finish that is going to get very, very crowded, and there's a long transition exit long exit from the swim to that transition area. So make sure you are prepared for that. I would walk this if possible on the days leading up to it, and if it's not, just make sure you scope it out so you know what you can expect. But back to the swim. So once you get into the beginning of your swim, this first stretch right here, the whole bulk of this stretch is going to be busy. Very, very, very busy. This first turn right here is another area where people are going to be jumbled up. You will have to turn around this turn buoy. What they did not specify in the athlete guide, or I might have missed it, was the stipulation and whether you could be on either sides of the buoys unless they are turn buoys. So what I would do is just actively try to stay to the right of all buoys until you get to that very last one down there. Going off into this first longer stretch over here, kind of the meat of the swim, this is going to be the moving area of the swim where you're going to be able to separate yourself from the pack, or they'll be separating themselves from you. After you get past this point, you should really be kind of centered into your race pace here. The paces that we have been working on up until race day, this is where you should be simulating some of those swims right in here. If you find that your pace is really, really high after this turn, then you need to back things down and you need to have a self-check-in, because if you wait until you get all the way back over here before you do that, bad things are going to happen later on. Now, a unique feature here is a double turned, and it's pretty quick right here. So what will happen is athletes are going to be not strung out. There will be a little bit of space in between them, but the water will be choppy from people stopping and starting and not really knowing where they're going. What I encourage you to do while you are swimming out this way is actively finding this buoy over here. Not cutting the course, but when you make your turn, you'll know where this buoy is in space. If you just want to follow the heads in front of you, you can also do that. But a big, big way to jump 10 or 20 spots in the swim is to just keep on moving out of this little swim buoy right here. Second to last turn here, this left-hander right through here. This is going to be one of the tougher sections out on course. This is going to be where people are starting to creep up on you that are too high of effort levels. So if you find that you are actively moving backwards in the swim and it is happening a lot, you need to increase the pace a little bit right there. Inversely, if you find that you are crushing people through this section, you need to have a check-in. Is it you or is it them for that reason? Last big turn buoy right here. Before you get up to this, you need to start kicking your feet and getting your body ready to exit the water and do this longer transition right here. Once you make the turn, a lot of people will be here. I would have your sighting frequency be the same as it has been over the course of this whole swim right here. If you increase your sighting, you're just going to get slower and slower and slower, and that's typically a pitfall of a lot of athletes, and they really, really struggle through there. Once you get out of the swim, again, longer transition, so you don't want to overdo it to that transition area. You do need to get there, right? And there should be some urgency, but if you could just do a light jog, that would probably be perfect to the transition area. If you see your heart rate is starting to sky or balloon up, you need to bring things down, and you need to actively check in with yourself again. What are other people doing based off of what you are doing? If you're doing things so differently than you did in training, then you need to back things down. If your heart rate is 170, I can automatically tell you you're going too fast. The bike. This is a very, very unique course, and you'll see here we have a best bike split breakdown of some things, and we'll talk about that in a second. But in the general overarching things, we have about 2,700 feet of climbing. The first 12 miles do suck you in, and there's usually a headwind and a high likelihood of overdoing it. Tendency to chop the first couple of early rollers in there, especially the first 5 miles. So the first 5 miles kind of set you up for failure if you're not thinking through things for about twice the amount of distance afterwards. You need to carry your speed through turns, through headwinds, as much as possible. You know, if you'll keep struggling around the turns, this is a very technical course here. And you'll see that in a minute once we go to the next page here. Tension on your chain is going to be a constant. You're going to constantly be turning over the pedals here, constantly applying the pressure on the pedals. And if you find that there is dead spots in your stroke, just kind of fix it out, just like on the trainer or anything else that we do. And the wind conditions could possibly be a little bit rough here. So let's dive in a little bit more specifically so you can see the first 5 miles right here. It's an uphill, a net uphill. There will be some downhills, but for the most part, you are going up. I have a yield sign there for you just because you need to be aware that your power will be high, right? But you do have the tendency, or the capability is probably a better word, to really consistently overdo the power there. So again, power numbers will be high. Take a look at your cheat sheets right through here, and you can see major hill 4 to 6%. That is what an example athlete should be doing right there. Based off of their FTP. Make sure you take a look at these numbers and you are aware of what you realistically should be doing in those first couple of miles. If you're, for example, supposed to be doing around 220 watts and you consistently find that you're going 230, 240 and holding that, that's going to really set yourself up for failure, and it probably will happen right before this 30-mile area right through here. After you get through those first 5 miles, the next 10 miles are probably the easiest out on course from a elevation standpoint. You have a net downhill for the majority of that. Again, there are going to be some hills mixed in there, so don't just assume it's pure downhill. What you will have is, what you usually have is a headwind as well for those 10 miles right through here. And so especially once you get near the end of this section and the course starts to turn up a bit, there's a real possibility that you can overdo those miles over there, even though the elevation gain is very, very subtle and pretty much non-existent to the rest of the course, right? And that's just because you're battling those headwinds. So again, be checking in with yourself, watching those numbers, watching your heart rate, using it all to put that puzzle together on race day and see and just actively say, is this really where I should be going? Is this what I should be doing, right? Next big section from mile 15 to mile 20, you do have another hilly section out over here. And again, I put another exclamation point, a caution area right through here, because you will want and you will feel that it is time to kind of put the power down, but I highly encourage you not to do that yet. This is another maintain section. This is another watch your fueling, get everything ready. And you should be going through this at a good little clip here, but you shouldn't be really maximizing the power here and holding that. That is going to be reserved for mile 23 through 32-ish right through here. That is the first and probably biggest key section out on course. And again, the power isn't going to be super high through these sections, but you're just going to consistently maintain that, and it's going to be a constant thing. It's going to be a constant thing. You will have a couple of breaks right through here, downhill, but for the most part, you are going to be working through this area, and the athletes that have overdone it up until this point are going to start to feel the burn right through here, and you probably won't catch those athletes or make up a whole lot of ground here. But what will happen to those athletes that overdid it in the first 20 miles is their muscles will kind of start to break down. They will start panicking. They'll start to actively shove food in their system or nutrition that they have been avoiding up until that point. And then once you get to the major section out on course, the one that everyone is talking about right now, the major hill, that's when they're going to explode. And you still might not catch them when the bike is over, but you will have a much better possibility of doing that on the run if you did the inverse of what we're doing here. So again, up this big hill, you could see the power is high, right? And it's not super consistent. There are some breaks in there. You will have a tailwind, usually. So just get up this as best you can without totally flooring it. I have a orange box with a green arrow through it right through here, and that is the point where you should be moving through the field after this hill. So what usually happens is athletes overdo this big hill and then they just get through this section right here. Again, watch your power numbers, hit your targets through here if you've set yourself up for success, and you will be actively cutting through the field at this point right here. After this point on the course, there is a long downhill, but again, you can see some uphill sections mixed in with there, so don't feel like it's purely downhill, and you will be going into a headwind again. So just keep that in mind, keep that in the back of your head. Just because you're going downhill, the work never really stops on this course. From mile 50 to 56, 55, it's a deceptively tough course right through there, and it's a place where a lot of athletes want to come off the gas. I encourage you not to until you get past mile 53-ish through this last big peak right here. There will be a couple of small rollers in there, one or two steep ones, but for the majority of the work, it has finished, so that's an opportunity for you to start fueling for the run, getting your last bits of hydration, nutrition in on the bike, and setting yourself up for success for the run. Common penalties on the bike. Blue cards are going to be the majority of the penalties that you get. This is your drafting violation, your littering, that kind of stuff. Make sure you know the rules. They do list them in the athlete guide, and you can also look at it at Ironman.com. Yellow card is a blocking penalty. You have 30 seconds in the penalty tent. Regardless of what you do, you have to stop at the next penalty tent area, and if you don't, you will get an automatic DQ. Run course is very, very busy. It is 2.5 loops, about 500 feet of gain, and it's a very, very technical bit of running, purely from a running turn-wise area. If you're looking at the elevation in that bottom right corner here, you can see here that the course is not overly technical from a terrain standpoint. So what that means for you is you're going to have to actively watch how you're exiting a lot of these turns. You want to maintain your speed and effort level through these turns, and if you find you're doing mini explosions or accelerations out of each turn, that's going to add up, and you won't be able to do that over the course of this race. If it was an Olympic, I could say possibly, but because this is a half distance race, you will not be able to do that. So maintain rather than exploding out of these turns. You will run into a lot of athlete traffic out on this course, and there will be a couple of sections where it is a little tight. Just run your pace as best possible, and you should be okay. It is very, very common for athletes to blow up on the first or first and a half loops out on this course, and the runway to the loops, like that first kilometer or so, first mile. That is another hot spot for athletes to really, really overdo it. You want to ease into it. You don't want to hit the first hill super hard. You're going to focus on fueling and running your race for the majority of this race, especially the first half. Easily to get sucked into other people's games, and you will have to do some navigating around some people. So if you look at the bottom right here, that first green numbered area, that first, let's call it 3 miles right through there, that is going to be the point at which you're going to ease into your race. Not uncommon for athletes to take 1.5 miles, 2 miles to get to their goal pace. In this case, this is an example athlete running about 8-10 minutes per mile. By the time you hit 2 miles, you should be right around that area. If you have to walk, run, it is what it is, right? Just start to get back to good and figuring out why you are walk running, okay? Was your effort level too high on the bike? Are you improperly fueling? Do you need to change things up a bit? All of that should be going through your mind to actively fix it. The first red dot out on course is the one of two major hills out here, and again, just get up this hill. Just get up it, don't crush it, especially on the first loop, no way. The first downhill section, that first blue circle dot, that is, I would argue, a bigger area out on course than the downhill, believe it or not. You're going to have a lot of athletes walking down that downhill, and if you can run down that, I would encourage at least a light shuffle down that hill at the bare minimum, simply because you are going to be losing the most time if you walk down the hill rather than if you walk up the hill. Okay, it's just going to allow a lot more separation to happen in those areas. First big key area, that green number 2 with the star beneath it, that is the, right through here, that is the probably one of the biggest keys out on this course. You're going to be running your target pace, power, heart rate, whatever you're utilizing, or all three hopefully. This is going to be where you're targeting your main metrics. This next big area out on course, the second time you go up that hill, that is going to be an area where you get to decide if you're having a great day or if you're just having a mediocre day. If you're having a mediocre day, again, just get up the hill like you did the first time, and if you're having a great day, feel free to increase the pace slightly here. This is because this next big downhill section, blue number 2, This section right here is going to be the place where you are going to be able to pass a lot of people if you are still running. Last big area over here, inversely to the first green one, you're going to want to increase your pace the further you get through here, ideally. If not, maintain, and if it is going south, walk run as best you can all the way in. So that is a brief course breakdown of the Ironman Staffordshire 70.3 this year. I will talk to you on an individual basis here, and we'll do some more individual specific stuff. But good luck, everybody.